So at the same time, the HBCUs just are out of money. And they're struggling financially. And she's saying it would be nice if some of these athletes use their agency because they are the product. And they walk around acting like a lot of times like these schools are doing them a favor. If Zion Williamson is playing basketball, people are going to pay to see it.
No matter where he is.
Duke is not doing him a favor.
But you're not going to be seen if you're playing for a team that's not even in the division. So I'm like,
no,
you will. As to why this.
Wait, you can say that in 1990.
Yeah.
You can say that in 1990, but right now you can be seen.
One thing about the Big Ten.
You're going to be seen by the pros too. You're going to be seen by the pros too. They pay scouts.
If you believe we can change the narrative, if you believe we can change our communities, if you believe we can change the outcomes, then we can change the world. I'm Rob Richardson. Welcome to Disruption Now.
Welcome to Disruption Now. I'm your host and moderator, Rob Richardson.
I'm James Keys.
And I'm Amisha Cross.
So if you remember, this is a few weeks back, the Rich Paul rule came out, which was a ridiculous rule that tried to limit access to those who could actually represent NBA agents. And so it was all ridiculous. But after that backlash, some people were coming out with this movement to say black athletes should actually start going to HBCUs and start making a movement out of that, particularly Jemele Hill, who really hasn't been shy about her opinions. We want to talk about it. Is she making a good point? Should black college athletes take more agency and actually do things to actually move the ball and maybe even go to HBCUs and start that trend? I don't know. We're going to talk about all sides of it, and we really want to kind of have that debate. That's what we do here at Disruption Now. We disrupt common narratives and constructs, and we're going to have a little fun today doing that. So look, Jemele Hill makes a point. So if you remember all the way back to the 90s, Amisha may not remember. I don't know what she was doing then, but I was watching college basketball then.
I wasn't watching college basketball in the 90s.
Yeah, we know. So
learning how to write.
So the Fab Five really started a trend, and you think about it, we still talk about the Fab Five to this very day. When five black athletes, they didn't go to an HBCU, but they really started a trend. They said, we're going to go here, we're going to start and bring hip hop culture. And, 5 freshmen went all the way to the Final Four, and you had almost nearly everybody from the hood rooting for them, and, everybody else rooting for Duke. And, Duke, the evil empire, some people felt, myself included, won. No, sorry, no disrespect to Duke if you love Duke, but I hate Duke. So they ended up winning, but they ended up really setting trends and setting a pattern and show people. And I think that actually made others kind of not like them, feel like they were over-aggressive black men, all those terms that get thrown around. But it showed what could happen. And so I do think that model possibly exists. But there's some other sides to it. But I want to get you guys' opinion, and I have my own opinion on it, but I want to hear you guys. I want to hear the panel. I know Amisha has a lot of really strong feelings about this, so I'm going to let you go first.
So, much respect to Jemele Hill for coming back after being outspoken at ESPN, but I feel like this has been a debate that we have had for years at this point. I don't think that there is a reason to tell black athletes that they should be choosing HBCUs. As someone who comes from a family of athletes, I can name only one that chose to go to an HBCU. And the reasoning for him was more academics than anything else. If we're talking about people who legitimately or feel like they really are going to have a shot at the NFL or the NBA, they're going to go to schools where the recruiters are going to see them, they're going to get noticed. They're going to go to schools that the boosters send their money to. They're going to go to schools that already have those advantages for young people who are wanting to get involved in these sports. And they're the ones that highly recruit them. If I'm someone who is interested in getting drafted to a major team, I'm going to go to a school that is known to drafting people to major teams. That's what I'm going to be looking forward to. I'm not going to choose one where I know that I'm going to be, no matter how good I am, I'm going to have to, one, be able to best those that are already at institutions that fund sports more heavily, but also looking at the fact that I don't think that you gain anything as an African American by telling all African Americans, regardless if it's for sports or for academics, just to go to HBCUs. I think that should be a student's personal choice, dependent on a variety of reasons and characteristics of things that matter to them. I don't think that it's fair and especially in today's day and age where we're looking to advance diversity, where we're trying to showcase and bring people to a better understanding of our culture to continue to separate ourselves.
But do you think that's what these power conferences are doing? And I want to have James went to an HBCU. I don't think these power conferences are. Yeah, I don't think these
university.
Yeah, I don't think these power conferences care about advancing diversity. In fact, a lot of them don't even have affirmative action and they have fake inclusion programs. Real talk, but they do. They're all about inclusion, of course, when it comes to athletics, and you can even lower the standard when the athletes come in. So I don't know if you see the proof of. You actually see these black graduates coming through, or with majors that actually will help them. Like general studies is not going to help you do much, but that's what a lot of people getting their degrees in.
You have to when you talk about this issue, you have to talk about the monetary aspect, because that's all this is about. The Power 5 conferences or the NCAA, it's about money. It's about controlling the producers of value so that they can profit off them without paying them, without worrying about workers' comp and things like that. And Jemele Hill's argument is also an economic one. She's not saying that people should go to black colleges because that's just what, that's just, oh yes, that's honorable or whatever. She's saying that the athletes that are participating at a high level in the NCAA, whether it's basketball, the television sports, that's what we're really talking about here. Men's college basketball is a television sport. Billions of dollars are paid to broadcast that on television. College football is a television sport. Billions of dollars are paid to broadcast that at the high levels on college football. She's saying that the product there, the people who are producing the value, are African-American athletes. And so at the same time, the HBCUs just are out of money. And they're struggling financially. And she's saying it would be nice if some of these athletes use their agency, because they are the product. And they walk around acting like a lot of times like these schools are doing them a favor. If Zion Williamson is playing basketball, people are going to pay to see it,
no matter where he is.
Duke is not doing him a favor.
But you're not going to be seen if you're playing for a team that's not even in the division. So I'm like,
you will.
Loss as to why this.
Wait, you can say that in 1990.
Yeah.
You can say that in 1990, but right now you can be seen.
One thing about the Big Ten.
You're going to be seen by the pros too. You're going to be seen by the pros too. They pay scouts.
Particularly basketball. I think we got to separate basketball. Football may be a little bit different on this, but with basketball, you could be if you have a school that's playing well and you're winning games, you're going to be seen. Like
the number 2 pick in the draft. The number this year, the number 2 pick in the NBA draft went to Murray State. You're telling me Murray State gets more exposure than Howard?
HBCUs need to be able to bring something to the table that makes those top players choose those schools. I agree with you. This is more about money than it is anything else. It's about money for the PWIs. It's about money for the HBCUs. If your package is not as incentivizing as another one's, then you cannot get mad that you were not the choice.
But I think graduating...
that's a fair point.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. I think graduating...
She's saying that out of solidarity, though, that, hey, maybe we should try to direct some of this money back into our own communities out of solidarity. I'm not saying that it's a controlling argument. I'm saying the argument is about money. Your point is valid, too. Like, hey, up your game if you want to get into this game, because as she pointed out in the article, Clemson's athletic facility is worth as much or almost as much as North Carolina A&T's. Clemson's athletic facility, North Carolina A&T's endowment are nearly equivalent. And so up your game if you want to get into that game. But there is something always to be said in terms of solidarity with black folks who share a common struggle in terms of oppression and have this historical
and HBCUs
context.
Have a really great track record with black graduates, better than anybody else by a lot. I mean, by a whole lot. Like what you say, 80% of judges, 50% of lawyers, I think 50% of doctors, 40% of those in Congress, 13% of CEOs. Particularly some of the, I don't know if I'm going to differentiate this, but like people, especially like Howard, I would say Morehouse. I would say
we differentiate them as top tier HBCUs versus everybody else.
Exactly. Especially with some of the top tier. What I'm saying is having a long-term interest versus a short-term. In the short term, I can tell you all the big five are going to be able to offer you a better package. There's just no question.
But it's also what your long-term goals are, because as somebody who has worked with a lot of college students and has sat on scholarship boards and been in these institutions, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, there are a lot of athletes who their only goal is to make it to the NBA or the NFL.
Which is a bad goal.
It's a bad goal, but it would be a bad goal if they went to an HBCU. Just going to an HBCU doesn't change their goal.
No, but going
they
to
came
HBCU,
in with the mindset that this is what I want to do.
That's not a bad goal.
No.
I mean,
Well, it is because you have less than 4% that are actually going to have a career past 3 or 4
if it's your
years.
only goal,
play the numbers out though. Would you rather take a 2% of making $10 million or a 40% of making $40,000?
Well, I've always encouraged
it's
those
not
students, even the
100% if you
strongest
go and get a
players,
degree either.
to also have something else that is a backup plan. You're right. Like you could
What's
still
the
end up
backup
having
plan
some
though?
financial
Working at
issues.
Uber,
but
doing Uber driving?
Exactly. I mean, that's kind of the point. I mean, all I'm saying is like making sure that we know if you're in these HBCUs, they're going to do everything possible to tell you, if you're not LeBron James, you're not Zion Williams, which is not 99% of the people. You need to at least have a backup plan and understand things, and understand how your money works, even if you make it. Ask a lot of players who we got, like Antonio Walker, who's had $120 million. He has nothing now. Adrian Peterson went from $0 to $100 million.
It's ironic how that seemingly only happens in mass to black athletes. There's something else we need to talk about.
No,
no, that happens to musicians.
That's
That happens to
in mass,
a lot
we're
of people who
talking
make their
about-
money fast.
Yes.
Is what that happens to.
Or people who have come from backgrounds where they have not seen a lot of money.
right. No, I
There's
agree.
something about financial education that we can't deny is missing in our neighborhood.
Yes, 100%. But also when you make your money fast, you value it less than you do when you make your money slow, when you build up slowly. Like that's anything. That's life. That's a human thing. Like if one day you have 0 and the next day you have 100 million, then naturally your brain kind of thinks like, oh, okay, I can blow this 100 million. And then the next day after that, I'll make another 100 million.
And I wouldn't necessarily always say that it's fast, because if I'm, again, I don't know whether you were an athlete, but like growing up as an athlete, having siblings and cousins who actually played in the NFL, for me, it was, I'm not going to say that this was fast, because they started training when they were kids. They started going to these things and being recruited by top high schools. Then they went on to very strong colleges and were able to play at the highest level there and then get recruited. So this is something that was years in the making. They didn't just wake up one day and become great.
They didn't go from making $50,000 a year in high school to $150,000 a year in the
to
pros.
$1 million.
They went from they were getting 0. They were getting a meal card at college, and then they were getting $10 million.
If Jemele Hill had written and she was arguing that these athletes should be paid, I would be 100% on board, and I am for many reasons.
We talk about that.
Just pushing people to HBCUs, that's going to take a little bit.
Yeah. And I just think, like, go ahead, James.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I think we have to look at this for what it is, though. It's a fair point. It's not a controlling point, and really, this is a personal decision.
It's a money grab. It is a money grab for HBCUs in the same way that everybody was writing after students had some issues on campus and needed to have their campus safe spaces at PWIs, and HBCUs were like, no, you can just come here, and they experienced a bit of a surge of students during that time, and they loved it. Right now, this is another era in which I think that many are seeing are a little opportunistic and trying to push.
But can I push back? I want to push back on a couple points. So, being a person who's been an athlete, I've seen what they've done, particularly going to from high school.
Why did you not choose the HBCU to be an athlete?
No, I wasn't that good. So I'm saying I understand the culture that's pushed by many people in our community, outside of our community, saying don't focus on those books, don't do that. You just need to put all your time in being an athlete. That is a wrong mentality, no matter what you say across the board. That's not for almost every single person. That's not going to do them any good, and it will help other people. It will help institutions. It will help that high school. It might help that college, but it's going to hurt you long term. So I do know HBCUs. If you go to the right one, they will call you. The professors, why did you miss class today? Like I've talked to people that have gone through this. I mean, they treat you like you're part of the community versus a commodity, which we know they definitely treat you like a commodity because they see you as paying their bills. I mean, so I do think it's a little different.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I think it's a little different. And I do think black people do start trends. And imagine if only a few major athletes, they say they all went to Howard, right? And then they started off and they built from Howard. They would really start something. I think people would at least look at that and see a lot of the things that black colleges offer that are different too, that I think a lot of people would like. Think about what Beyonce did when she let everybody see black bands and black culture. A lot of people are like, wow, I had no idea that happened. I think it also helped black people, and I think help a lot of other people. That's all. I'm not saying everybody should do that, but I do think black athletes have a lot more power and agency than they actually give themselves credit for. We are the culture.
Yes. Yes,
We
and
are
that's
the culture.
point, actually. I want to push back against the money grab point, because it's not a money grab in the sense it's an awakening and saying, look, you do have a lot of power in this multi-billion-dollar industry. And so at least consciously we weld it. Everything is not for everybody. I always say that. So what she's saying is not for every single Black athlete, but for some who want to exert some type of social conscience in their point of college selection, this is an opportunity, a way to do that. You can take that, the money that you generate by virtue of your athletic prowess that you're not getting any of, and you can direct that in a place that's more conscious, or direct it more consciously to a place that may compart with your belief system that's already in place. I don't think she's trying to change anybody's belief system.
And have a strong belief system and go to a PWI and play there.
No, it is
no, but that doesn't. That ignores the financial piece.
Paths, but then again, they have several different options. And again, when you have choice, and this is the path that you choose, I don't see why there would be a problem there.
Well, I don't think they should. But I think there are people that say that you're not going to have as good of options.
And they would be correct, because historically speaking, we've seen these in numbers.
But that's not.
So those people aren't wrong.
But I don't. But I disagree with that point, because I would think if more of us are actually able to graduate
but you can't disagree with it in practice, because again, if the sole point is that you have more options here, and we've seen this play out in numbers for those who want to be athletes.
I mean, no,
that's not true.
How is that true?
How is that true?
We have seen more Black athletes come out of PWIs.
No, that's because more go, but it's not like you have a better chance of going to the pros by going to that. Now,
let me say this.
Hold on. Let me say this. There is a point that you are not making that I think is 100% correct, that supports you, and that is right now, because the money is at the predominantly white schools, the medical care and travel and things like that, which also affects your health, is going to be much better. And so, yes, from that standpoint, athletically, you'll be better served at Clemson than you would be at South Carolina State. You're going to have much better medical care, and that stuff really matters.
Yeah.
Now, the objective over time would be to level out the playing field by, again, using your talents to cause more money to be directed to these Black schools. It's not that they don't have the money from sports because they're just wasting it. They're just not generating the same amount of money because they don't have CBS or Fox or ESPN writing them billion-dollar checks. And so there's a difference there. And the point, again, is just to say, hey, maybe we should consider also trying to get some of these checks that the TV people are writing to go to HBCUs. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. Right. I don't think it's compulsory. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But we should at least be conscious of the decision.
Yeah, no doubt. No, so I actually look at it this way. So we have this. It's not just about if it's better for you as an athlete. I think that we have to get out of that mindset, because 99% of us are not going to go on to be professional athletes. And even the small percentage that do, they're going to have very short careers. So we're going to need to develop academically, and we're going to need to know to invest in ourselves and not listen to those in our community and outside that say, all you need to do is focus on your athletics. You're going there to be an athlete. No, you're not.
But that's a conversation that needs to be held long before somebody is making a college decision. We need to be having this in elementary school, middle school, because there are literally people who are geared from a very young age to where this is what they see as their outlet. It doesn't matter if they choose a PWI or an HBCU.
But isn't this whole point about the athletes that are generating the money, like the really high level? The 12th guy on the bench at Duke is not bringing in TV dollars. It's Zion Williamson. It's RJ Barrett. Like the people that we're talking about are the people that are the potential pros.
Right.
Like she's saying that the people who are drawing eyeballs to the screen, and frankly, that's not the 12th guy on the basketball bench or the 90th guy on the football roster. We're talking about the stars.
Then that only makes it harder for them, because at the end of the day, if you're talking about bringing the people who are going to bring the major dollars, who are the stars of the team, they have more options than anybody else, and they always will. So again, that just means you have to be, even if HBCUs came out competitive one year, where it was okay, you get a whole rush of top 5 Black athletes to show up there. You have to show that inconsistency, or at least then be drafted in consistency for generations of Black people to say, this is the move I want to make.
And to your point,
no. Why could Rutgers doesn't show that they're consistently good at anything? So you're saying that people should go to Rutgers?
Alabama does, and Alabama is the dream for a whole bunch of people who want to play football.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter where you went to high school. It doesn't matter what other colleges exist. You want to go to a school that you're looking at that consistently remains strong.
But let me pivot.
But there are plenty of power conference schools that aren't strong, though. Is what I'm.
That's true.
If you're saying Alabama, if you're saying Clemson, if you're saying Duke,
Vanderbilt, but Vanderbilt's a great school though.
But there are a lot of loser Power 5 programs.
Yeah, and I want to say, you make a great point, James. But I also want to go back to a point that Amisha made earlier. We have to have the conversation earlier, elementary, middle school. But you are pushed then, and I would say like these schools are willing to lower their standards considerably if they can get an athlete. Well, I say, hey, we could solve the problem in a lot of urban communities because people would make sure we would actually get better educated men, black men and women. If we say, hey, the standards got to be the same across the board. We don't believe in inclusive programs. We don't believe in affirmative action. We don't need to do it for sports either. And make sure that people get in no matter what. So then people are going to say, well, maybe we need to do more to prepare people instead of just saying you just focus on being an athlete. I think that's a big problem.
That's Pollyannish, man. That's not how the world works. The world doesn't work like that. If you have a talent and that talent is valuable, then people make exceptions for you.
And it's not some like funny business
going on with athletics.
And we know that a lot of those students aren't where they need to be academically, and that's why they have assigned to them several different tutors and everything else, and they have a different course track in many cases than a lot of other students. It is what it is.
But they've also doing them a favor. But they're doing that because these people are valuable.
Exactly.
These people
I agree with you there. I don't think that.
But you I think you're doing an injustice to a lot of kids if you're doing that to them early on because they do this to them starting in middle school. And you don't know if somebody's going to be LeBron James. I don't think that's valuable to those kids. I think
that doesn't help them. No, I'm not saying it's helping them. I'm saying that's the way the world works, though.
That is, but that doesn't mean I accept that.
There are 30-year-olds right now that get every excuse made for them because they drive money, they drive revenue.
Oh yeah, there's no question.
There are 50-year-olds that may there are 70-year-olds.
And what I'm saying is, it's hurting them. It's not you. At least those people are being helped. Long term, overall, you do the numbers. We're being hurt by that process. And yes, it may be Pollyannish, but I'm making a point that we need to have more agency over the process. I think that's another level of what Jemele could be pointing to. I just wanted to point that out.
She's definitely saying that.
Yeah. So let's talk about money. When you talk about having agency, you have all these athletes that are not paid $1. And what really, we've talked about this before, but what really pisses me off is that not only can you not be paid at all, you can't even make money off your likeness. So if someone wanted to start a YouTube show, like there's actually a guy who did this. I think Donald, I can't remember his last name, but he did this and he started his own YouTube station and all this other stuff. And he did everything he needed to do academically. He was doing his stuff, but they prevented him from being able to collect the money he was getting from that, just because he was playing football. Like, I think that's ridiculous. I mean, so you're also at the same time exploiting these kids, and at the same time, you're not going to allow them to make any money, and they can't even have a regular job like other students can. But then you want to say they're students, they're not athletes. I mean,
there's two pieces of that, though. One is the workers' comp piece. If they're classified as employees, or if they can argue under agency law that they're employees, then and not student athletes, then you have workers' comp issues. You have like the exposure to the university goes up, but also it's just about controlling them. It's completely BS. Now they're paid, quote unquote, in the form of a scholarship, which, by the way, was the same deal people got 50 years ago when there was no television contract. Like, so before it was, okay, you get a scholarship, we get to keep the money from the tickets we sell. And that's actually not too bad. That's not that bad of a fair deal. I don't think that in terms of ticket sales, maybe athletes shouldn't get that. But once you start putting it on TV, which you're already doing a performance, you put it on TV, you're not doing anything to get it on TV. All you're doing is getting a check, somebody showing up and shooting it. So you're not even shooting it. Once you start doing that, then you are actually selling their performance beyond the confines of your stadium. And that part, basically, I think that's illegal. I think that not the Supreme Court, but the appellate court, as it's working through as appellate courts, that's not going to stand, because they are just not able to say, okay, yes, we will take TV money for your performances, and then you do not get any cut of that. And then, as you said, you can't do endorsements. You can't do anything with your likeness. Now, the other piece that you have to consider is that this is not fair. If it was fair, then let's say, okay, take away the scholarship, let them negotiate for free, or let them negotiate equally. Let's say, okay, Zion Williamson, you negotiate with Duke, you see what you end up with in terms of value. You know it's going to be much more than a scholarship. That's how you know that by restricting people to a scholarship, you are cutting them off. You are saying you are doing something that is anti-capitalist, anti-free market. Dare I say you are a socialist if you do that.
I think I'm going to agree with you a lot there. I think we're in a different space today where you're seeing more and more of these games get on network TV. You're seeing more and more of these schools actually have apparel that's not only sold here but also sold abroad. They are literally making millions, sometimes billions, off of these athletes, and there should be a question there as to the value add for the athlete, because yes, they get their moment in the shine, but they're not getting anything while they're there. And for you to talk about it just in terms of scholarship, your scholarship in and of itself is less than 2% of what the school is making off of these students anyway. So I'm like, there has to be something more. I agree with you in terms of the negotiation power as well. It's something that I don't think that schools are going to buy into anytime too soon, but it's definitely something that I think that more and more students should take up.
Yeah, schools are never going to buy into it. You know, power concedes nothing without demand, never has, never will, right? So they're going to need to.
Of course. Like, why would they? They have their
work.
workforce locked in, you know, but it's ridiculous. I made this point a couple months ago on one of the podcasts we did, but if it'd be like your employer paying you with the product that they provide normally, like if you work for Nike, all they do is give you shoes. And it's like, well, no, I need some money. You know, like I need to buy stuff. Like I can't, what am I doing with all these shoes? Like, so it's not like the colleges are doing anything out that they don't already do for the athletes. All they're doing is saying, yeah, I sell cars, you know, like here, work for me in my Ford factory and I'll give you a free car. And that's it. It's like, well, no, that's ridiculous. You know, like, so we wouldn't accept that anywhere else. You know, like it's the people who perform and people who drive revenue should be able to capitalize on that. That's what we're supposed to believe in as Americans.
Which is why they have to take agency of who they are. And no matter how that looks, even if that's organizing a union, whatever, I think more and more players have to think about how they're going to take agency back. If it's going to HBCUs, I think the broader point.
HBCUs aren't going to pay them either.
Well, that's a good point. You know,
well, if you go to HBCUs, though, the predominantly white schools will start paying.
Yeah, exactly. They might. That's a good point. That's a good point. But the point is, we have to take agency and understand our own power, because there's a lot of power in what we bring, and I don't think the value is being reflected in that. And we just have to realize that as a culture going across the board.
I think that's the big point, man. The big point isn't that everybody needs to go to an HBCU. The big point is that put that in your calculus when you're considering where you want to go to school. Like, hey, I'm making a lot of money for X school and I get a set amount back. So whatever X school is, if I want to go here because they have the best facilities, or I want to go here because I'm going to be on TV the most, or I want to go here because of whatever reason, you can also consider I want to go here because I want to direct all the money that I'm bringing in back into this community. Like that could just be one of the considerations. I think that's the whole point.
I don't think a lot of people in professional athleticism actually think about that. We have our shining moments of glory with athletes who are giving back to the community at the highest level. And then we have those who are me, spending their money on cars, women, and other things.
Yeah,
like,
you have the Michael
I
Jordan.
don't think that's going to change based on someone's, and I don't even expect that type of appeal from someone who is 18 or 19 years old if we can't get it out of somebody who is 30.
No, I mean, but I think if we have to keep making a conscious effort to make people aware, because some people aren't even socially conscious that they should be doing it, right? I mean, but you know, we have had athletes who've done that. We've had Muhammad Ali. I think LeBron James does a good job. Then you have the O.J. Simpson model, as James has said about, you know, we've seen that paradigm. Either you can be profitable, make a lot of money in both. You can give back, you can be conscious, and you can still make money. Because there's this false narrative out that says that, oh, if you're conscious, you lose money. You might lose some money, but that doesn't mean you might not make money that way. There's other opportunities to make money. I mean, LeBron has shown that. Muhammad Ali's, how much is Muhammad Ali's worth?
I don't think that this is something that they're sitting around consciously thinking. When you talk about LeBron, you talk about people like Muhammad Ali, they had lifelong pursuits of social justice. It wasn't just when they became athletes. They were able to give more when they did, but these were people who were always, it is in their DNA to do this. I am arguing that there are a lot of individuals that does not exist for.
Correct.
No, I agree.
Correct. I mean, but you shouldn't underestimate all 18-year-olds, though. Yes, many 18-year-olds, you know, like are not going to be thinking about what's best for society in terms of their college choice, but some will. And so those who do want to factor that into their mindset, then hey, this is something else you can consider as far as the impact of your decision. The impact of your decision to bring value wherever you go to college, because it's not a one-way street. A lot of times people have in their mind, this is a one-way street. I go to college, they're doing something for me. I'm just grateful that they're just doing all this for me. And actually, you're bringing in millions of dollars for them. And if you want to direct that money in a conscious way somewhere where you think it'd be important, then great. If you don't, then great, you know, do you. But at the same time, it is something that if it's not brought up, then people won't even see it
That's
as
the
an
point.
effect that they can have.
That's the point, because LeBron, my guess is LeBron had others who taught him those values. Like some people do have it instinctively, but generally people learn the values from community. And so making sure that we're socially conscious can do nothing but help. So if we tell our athletes versus just focus on being an athlete and that's it, actually focus on making sure you do more to help, it's not always about you, then we might be more likely to actually see more economic improvements. I think that's what we're trying to point to, actually understanding the power of our agency, the power we have as people, and the power we have, particularly if you're an athlete that happens to have these gifts and abilities. Realize that it's only going to be for a short period of time, and realize that there's a lot that can be done with your talents, a lot more than most people actually realize. Until next time, though, eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. I'm Rob Richardson.
I'm James Keys.
And I'm Amisha Cross.
And we'll see you next time.